Welcome back. On today's episode, I will be discussing and previewing and picking my winner for the World Cup, as well as touching on some of the other interesting storylines I think will be interesting to follow um, during this World Cup. And yeah, I'm really excited. I hope you are. Right after the break, I'll be picking. All right, welcome back. Um, I think this is one of the more wide open World Cups in recent history, I'd say. Um, There really aren't dark horses that ever end up winning. It's not like the NCAA tournament or um, how the World Series has kind of become recently, or even the Super Bowl, where a team kind of come out of nowhere. That's not how it works in the World Cup. Very few teams have ever won. I believe only 8 nations have ever won it. Um, and one of those winners, Italy, won't even be here. So it's not really a competition where anyone has a good shot or there's 20 teams who, if they get hot, can win it. Typically, with how many games there are, with just how long the tournament is, sometimes your depth and injuries matter. Um, you're going to need a really talented, deep squad in order to actually win with the trophy. And I think teams like Portugal, um, they've never won before, but I think they're a real competitor here. Um, Similar to what Belgium was a couple years ago, or how the Dutch have been, where they've never won, but they had really good squads who almost won, reached finals or semifinals. I think Portugal's probably the only team that's never won a World Cup that's a real legit contender. And you'll see how far I have them going in a minute. But for the most part, I'd say it's the typical teams who are going to be competitive here. I think Spain and France, to me, are the two, I think, are clearly the two best teams in the world. Um, I think Brazil is going to do better than people think. They've won more World Cups than anyone. They're always favored to go in, but recently they've just not produced as much talent as especially a country like France, where it used to be like Rio de Janeiro. They used to just pump out the best players in the world constantly, and now Paris is the hotbed of talent, where kind of France has replaced Brazil, where they just have so much depth. I mean, they could probably fill out two or three squads worth of players that aren't even at the World Cup that would make a far run. It could potentially even win it. So, I mean, France is just in a different level in terms of their depth. And I think they have a couple weaknesses, but I do think they're the best team. And then Spain, they're they're always hard to play against. They have really good players. Pedri is one of the best kind of creative midfielders in the world. Lamine Yamal is one of the best young players in the world. He's coming off an injury. I believe he tore his hamstring. So we'll see how he does. This will be his first real competitive matches since getting injured. So uh, I don't really know what to expect out of him, but he's a phenomenal player. He brings a lot of danger in attack. I don't love their back line. I think their defense, you can get at them, but let's see if Rodri, if he's healthier, if he's going to recover from his injury a little bit, because he's going to be important to kind of anchor the midfield there. Um, but they just have so many guys in midfield who can pick you apart. They're so good on the ball. It's impossible to get the ball off of them. Um, I think Lafuente is a very good coach. He's going to have them ready to go. And they've played well against France the last two times. They've beaten them two straight times. Last year, the Nations League in the semifinals. Then they beat France in Euros, I believe, in the semifinals in 2024. So, I mean, it seems like they kind of have their number. I think France is probably going to come in here with a bit of a chip on their shoulder against Spain. I don't think they were played very well or had the best sides um, that they put out against Spain. So I think there's room for improvement there. If, gun to my head, I would still say France is the better team and I'd pick them to beat Spain. Um, but I think those are unquestionably the two favorites. And then for other European nations who I think are going to do well, I think England, they always say it's coming home and it never does. So we'll see. I think Thomas Tuchel's an idiot. The squad that he's putting out, um, I have real questions about. The thing about international football is you don't really have the time to work on a system and develop the tactics you want with these players like you do at a club or professional level because you have every day to work with them and to establish a pattern of play and the principles you want to see out on the field. And you just don't have the time to work with these players on an international level. So historically, the teams that find success are teams with pretty simple tactics and they just roll out their best players. They're defensively solid and they rely on their elite attacking talent to score enough goals to win. And I think England, for the first time, certainly in my lifetime, but maybe for the first time ever, have a legitimate, like, top, at minimum 5, but probably top 3 talent pool. I mean, they're producing so much talent. These young players coming up are incredibly gifted. I mean, they're a legitimate, just on pure talent, they're an elite nation now. And Thomas Tuchel seems to want to, do his thing. He's trying to run his system and he's picking players that fit his system. And that's just not how international football works or how the teams that win. They don't use that strategy. They put out their best players and create a system around the best players, a simple, 1 or 2 principles that they can follow because they don't have much time to practice and then go out and win or give it all their all. I just think England's going to struggle with trying to run a club style system here in an international game where he's not selecting their most talented players. And I think there's something to be said for having the nerve and the guts to not just put out the most talented player at every position if they are not going to help the team as a collective. But I mean, not starting Jude Bellingham, potentially going with Morgan Rogers, I think is a fireable offense. Jude Bellingham is a phenomenal world-class player. He's arguably the best midfielder in the world. He could have won the Ballon d'Or like 2 years ago. He's just phenomenal. And leaving players like that out, I think, is not going to go well. I mean, they already left players like Trent and Cole Palmer at home who have world-class, they're world-class players and they didn't have great seasons. They struggled with injury. They weren't always in great form. But I just think leaving phenomenal elite players at home or on the bench, you're going to pay for that at some point in time. And playing lesser than players who fit your system better and might work a little harder for what you want to see them do, I think will work. Or I think England's going to look really good early. I do. I think they're going to pick apart these lesser nations in their group when there's no real threat coming back at them against some of these smaller nations. I think Thomas Tuchel's system and these players are going to look really good because they're going to, they're coached really hard. They have a system that they're trying to play with. So I think they'll peak early. But my concern is as the tournament goes on and they start facing nations like Argentina or Brazil or Portugal or France or Spain, or even I guess Senegal or Morocco, I worry, or even Germany maybe, I worry that not having as good of players on the field is going to matter. And in a really messy, it's going to be super hot. The field, like on-field temperature, especially these outdoor stadiums, is going to be like 100, it's going to get 110 to 120 degrees probably on the field here. So it's not going to be a pretty game. You're not going to be able to pick apart your opponent passing the ball up and down. It's going to be people are going to be really tired, and it's going to take a moment of brilliance from one of your best players, and that's going to change the game. And not having your brilliant players on the field, I think, is going to matter. So I don't think England's going to get ultimately to the finish line. I think they probably go out in the quarters, be my prediction. I for some reason, I feel like they're going to get matched up with Brazil in the quarterfinals. And I think even though Brazil is down and they don't have the talent they've historically had, they still have really good players. Vinny's never really showed up for Brazil. He's obviously struggled at Madrid for the last year and a half, but he's still a phenomenal player. People are kind of underestimating Brazil, and I think they're going to surprise some people. Rafinha is obviously great. Neymar is still there. We'll see what he can give them. I think they have good center backs. And Carlo Ancelotti is arguably the greatest manager in the history of the sport in terms of just winning titles. He's won countless major trophies with countless clubs. So I think he does well in these kind of knockout competitions. So I think they're going to be well coached and they're going to be ready to go. And I think Brazil's going to beat England in the quarterfinals ultimately. Um, I think Germany, I'm a little worried about them. I don't think they have the incredible talent they've had. I don't think they're coached particularly well. I think they're probably like around a 16 quarterfinals type of team. I don't think they're going to make the semifinals. I could even see them struggling in the group, to be honest. I have them finishing first, but I don't feel great about it because they've struggled so much, even getting out of the group in the last two tournaments. I am kind of zagging and having them finish first, but I think they're going to flame out in the knockout stages pretty early on. I just don't think they have the top end talent. I don't think they're coached very well. Um, I don't know who's going to score goals for them. I don't think passing your way through the opposition to then, pass the ball into the back of the net, it works in the World Cup or international play at large. I think you need moments of brilliance and elite goal scorers to come through and score for you. And I just don't think Germany has that right now. I mean, unless what is it going to be like Leroy Sané? He's going to have to score for them. Musiala is coming back off of a really catastrophic injury, so they're going to be relying on him in midfield. He's going to have to do something in a really hot tournament. I think you're asking a lot from him to have to play all 90 minutes in these games in order to create something for their offense. Florian Wirtz did not have a great season at Liverpool, so we'll see how he does. I just don't think they have a lot going forward. I worry about that. Their midfield is aging, and in a tournament where I expect it to be really hot, as I've said, I worry about teams who do not have great depth and aging players ultimately. Um, so I don't think they're going to make a super deep run. Um, I think Portugal. I think Ronaldo. Look, I think he's the greatest player of all time. I do. He's not aged well. He, I think, his reluctance to accept where he's at in his career does cause some problems for Portugal. But who are they going to replace him with? Gonzalo Ramos? I think we saw last year in the Nations League, he's still capable. He's still an elite goal scorer. And if you leave him in the box and give him an opportunity, especially in these close games, I trust him to get on the end of a cross, get his head on the end of a corner. I think he's still a pretty valuable player. And if he accepts playing when they need him to play and not demanding too much of the attention or too many touches, I think they'll do well. I still think they need him. I think, as I mentioned, he's still a good goal scorer. I think they're going to need those goals. Um, Rafael Leao, I feel like he's always played pretty well for Portugal, but he's had an inconsistent club season at Milan. We'll see what he brings. I think they need his athleticism down that left wing in order to play some balls in behind and challenge the back line vertically. Um, Pedro Neto and Conceição, I like them. I think Conceição has always been pretty clutch off the bench for Portugal. I think that'll help. Obviously, in midfield, I think they're the best team in the world in midfield between Vitinha, João Neves, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva. Um, they're just so talented. They have depth there as well. I think they're going to need to pass the opposition off the field a little bit. They're going to need to kind of adopt what Spain does, and they're just going to be super solid in midfield, control the ball, control the game, set the tempo at the rate they want it to be played at, and try to find Ronaldo in the box. I think Bruno Fernandes is a very good goal scorer for his position. I think they're going to need him to score some goals. Nuno Mendes, their left back, I think he's a phenomenal young player. He's probably the best left back in the world. I think they're going to need him to get forward. João Cancelo is still a very good right back. I think he's going to be important. I like their back line. Ruben Dias, I don't think's quite as good as he once was like 2 or 3 years ago, but I still think he's a pretty solid center back. I really like Renato Vega, still Gonzalo Ignacio. I like their back line. I think Diego Costa is a good goalkeeper. So I think Portugal's going to make a deep run. I really do. I think now's their moment. I think everything's going to be about Ronaldo and Messi because this is going to be the last World Cup. Messi kind of had his run last year or last 2 years, yeah, or 4 years ago, excuse me, in 2022. I think Portugal's going to make a run this time. I think Ronaldo's going to have his chance. Um, it's kind of unfortunate for him that during his peak, he never had a very good Portugal side. Like, it was a really poor Portugal side. It was the worst it's been in a lot of years, where ultimately they were only able to win one tournament, the Euros in 2016. I think if he had this current Portuguese side in his peak, they would have won some World Cups. So that's unfortunate for him. But I do think they'll make a run and get pretty far. Now, Argentina, it's really tough to go back to back in World Cups. I think France almost did it in 22. They probably should have, even with all the injuries they suffered in the 22 World Cup. They still probably should have beat Argentina in that final. If Kolo Muani just finished that shot at the end of the game, or if they just got their shit together earlier in that game in the first half, they probably would have won that final. So you can go back to back. My concern for Argentina, though, is they're getting older. They don't have Di Maria anymore, who was a phenomenal player. Messi's capable at times, but it's going to be hot. They're playing inside quite a bit, so I think that's going to help, especially as the tournament moves on. A lot of these games are played in indoor stadiums, which will help older players. But I worry about their legs. You know, DePaul in midfield, he's getting older. I don't think he's still the same workhorse he once was. Simeone on the right, he's good, but I don't think he offers a whole lot. Enzo Fernandez, he's a very good midfielder. He's had a bit of a up and down club season, but he's going to be important. They still have McAllister, who's a good player. So, I mean, they have talent. Then they have young players like Nico Paz coming through. Julian Alvarez, I think, is one of the more underrated strikers in the world, to be honest. So they have talent there. Lautaro Martinez, let's see if he can have a bounce back tournament here. They have a lot of individual talent still. They're well coached. I like their keeper. He's going to leave. Martinez is going to keep you in games. I think he'll do well in penalty shootouts. Their back line is aging. You know, Otamendi's obviously older. Let's see if Romero is going to have a good tournament. Lisandro Martinez is back from injury. Let's see what he can do. You know, their fullbacks are all right. I don't think they're going to make a semifinals. I think they probably ultimately tap out. I think Portugal is actually going to beat them in the semifinals. We're going to get the Ronaldo Messi matchup, and I think this time Portugal is just currently better. I think they have better players right now, and I think they're going to get the last laugh there. So I have Portugal beating them in the quarterfinals to get to the semifinals. As far as like kind of the tier below teams, I think Netherlands has some talent. Their back line is aging, but it still should be good with Van Dijk, Van de Ven, De Vrij still there. See what he can do. Dumfries, Frankie de Jong in midfield is going to be quite good. I just think they have nothing going forward. You know, Cody Gakpo is not scaring anyone. Xavi Simons is out. I think he tore his ACL at Tottenham, so that's going to hurt. They do not have a lot going forward. I just don't think they're going to ultimately be able to cause too many problems. I think Belgium, this is the last dying breath, really, of their so-called golden generation when they had, Eden Hazard, Kevin De Bruyne, Lukaku was in his prime, Fellaini, Vertonghen, Alderweireld in the back line. They were good. They had Dries Mertens. They used to be a very good side. I just think they do not have this generation who came after them. It's just not as good. They still have Courtois in goal, so they have the best goalkeeper. He should be able to keep you in a game or two. Lukaku is just not the same player. De Bruyne slowing down. You could start to really see the gap from where he once was. They no longer have Hazard. I think Doku's good, but I don't think he's like a real goal scorer. I don't think he can lead you in goals and go very far. So I think they'll get out of their group, and I think they actually fall. If they can finish high in their group, they actually have a pretty easy path to like the quarters, to be honest. So I could see them getting all the way there before losing. I think probably to Spain. I just don't think they're like a real legitimate contender. But I think because of their side and how it could line up with the bracket, I think they could actually make a pretty deep run, a farther run than they probably should with their quality. Um, for some of the African nations, I think Senegal is very good. Um, Sadio Mane is a bit older though. I think they have a pretty tough group. I don't think they'll finish first there, which means they're going to face tougher teams in the knockout stages. I just think they have a bad break, so I don't think they're going to make it very far. Morocco, obviously, they're in a group with Brazil. Um, Morocco has expectations now. I, I really like their players. I think Hakimi is a phenomenal player. He might be the best right back in the world, certainly one of them. Brahim Diaz, I'm a Madrid fan, so I hope he does well. I think he's a solid player. I don't think he can be your best player though in attack and take you that far. So I think ultimately they probably will fall a bit short of what they were able to do the last time when they made a surprise run of the semis. I think they're good though. I think Ivory Coast, how the bracket lines up for them, they could make a deep run. I could see them getting like the round of 16 at the quarters. They have good talent. They're always a pretty good nation. They're pretty consistent. I think they're well coached. I think they probably, of all the African nations, I think they probably make the deepest run here. Um, I think Uruguay down South America, I think they're going to struggle a bit. They're always talked about as a team is going to make a deep run. Fede Valverde is a phenomenal player. He's good. I don't think they have a whole lot of elite talent. I mean, they no longer have Luis Suarez. They don't have Cavani anymore. I, I just don't think this is their tournament. I think they need more younger talent come through. Maybe in 28 or 32, they could be back. I just don't think this is a very strong generation for Uruguay. Ecuador is super talented. They always have some phenomenal players. Caicedo, Pacho, center back for PSG. I think they're going to be good. Some people are picking them to like win the World Cup. I just don't think they have the depth to do that. They have really good players. Their starting 11 is probably as good as anyone but France or Spain, maybe England, or Portugal. But I just don't think they have the depth. And in a tournament where I think the heat is just going to weigh on people so heavily. I think people are going to be exhausted. You're just going to need to have players. And there's an extra game, mind you, as well. You're just going to have a lot of players who can play. And I just don't think Ecuador has it to ultimately get to like the World Cup final. I think they can make a deep run though. I just don't think they're a real contender because I just don't think they have enough players. Colombia, I think they're a little past their peak. I think they might disappoint a little bit. James Rodriguez is still pretty important for them in midfield. He kind of creates a lot of their attack. So I worry about that. Luis Diaz is a phenomenal player. Their back line, I don't love. Davinson Sanchez is still probably their best center back. He's getting older. He's not what he once was. I don't know. I don't think they have a super deep run in them, to be honest. As far as Asia goes, I think Korea will do okay. Japan's always pretty solid. I think Japan makes it to the knockout round. I don't think they make it super far. They've had some injuries. I don't think the super deep runs in them. But I do think they'll probably do the best of the Asian nations. As far as North America goes, I think Canada's group is pretty favorable for them. As long as they play pretty solid defensive counter-attacking based football, I think they'll be successful. Alphonso Davies is getting healthier. I think that matters. He's obviously the best player. I think they'll make it out of their group this time. I really do. I don't think they have a super long run in them, though, in the knockout rounds, but I think they'll get out, which exciting for Canada. Mexico, I have them topping their group, but I'm really tempted not to, but I think they will. They always do pretty well to start the tournament. I think they'll do well. I actually have them matching up with England in the knockout rounds, which is a game I'm fascinated in because it will be in Mexico City. And England has not always showed up in those moments, and Mexico will be absolutely hyped for that game. But ultimately, I have England. I just think they're talented enough. I think Thomas Tuchel hopefully will figure out that he needs to put his best players on the pitch. And I think Jude Bellingham or Harry Kane will come up with a big goal and see off Mexico. But I think Mexico will have a exciting start to the tournament. I think that game against England, if ultimately they both get there, I think will be fun. I just think England probably gets over the top in that one. And then for the U.S., I mean, I feel like we're riding roller coaster here. For a while, we're like, we're going to do well. Then it was really dark and everyone thought we were going to really struggle. Now I think there's some excitement again. I think we were better in Germany. I don't think we're a better team, but I think we played better than Germany in that game. I liked what I saw against Senegal, especially when we had our A team on the pitch. The problem is we don't have any depth. I mean, Christian Roldan and some of these shitty MLS players are going to be, I think, kind of relied upon. I mean, I think Berhalter's going to have to play, and they're just not up to they're just not good enough to play some of these elite nations. They're just not. And we're fairly injury prone. Some of our best players, like Tyler Adams now, is going to be absolutely crucial because he's really our only good holding midfielder we have on the roster, but he's injury prone. Chris Richards is a question mark to be able to play the first game. I don't even know if he's going to be able to come back for the second game. So I just don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens with him, but our back line is terrifying. We need Chris Richards. Tim Ream is freaking ancient. The dude turns like a semi truck. If he's defending one-on-one, even against it doesn't even have to be Kylian Mbappe. It can be anyone. He's going to get cooked. So that's concerning. Miles Robinson might be the worst center back in the entire tournament. I have no idea how he made the squad. He can't play. If he's on the pitch, we're screwed. I think Alex Freeman's been good. I like him. I would prefer Austin Trusty, honestly, to start as opposed to Tim Ream. Chris Richards needs to be available, though. If we ultimately want to make a run, our back line needs to be solid. McKenzie needs to be healthy, and Chris Richards needs to be healthy. And because, I mean, there are no dark horse runs are ever made in the World Cup without a really good back line. And the U.S. is weakest part of the team is their back line. I like their fullbacks. I think Anthony Robinson going forward, he obviously scored a wonder of a goal over the weekend against Germany. I think Serginho Dest being healthier is important. I like McKennie. I think he's really coming on. Him in midfield, as high up he can play, I think the better for the U.S. because he creates a lot of chances for other players. He's a good goal scorer. Christian Pulisic seems like he's playing with confidence, which is important for them. I mean, they need him to score goals. He had an abysmal season with Milan this year, but if he's playing with confidence and he's going to be active and assertive for the U.S., that's a huge positive. I think Florian Balogun, I would start him at least against the better nations because I like his pace and his ability to break through a back line. I think he honestly is a better finisher than Pepe. I know Pepe kind of has people think of him as an elite finisher. So maybe he does get the start against some of these smaller nations like Paraguay early on who are going to kind of bunker, or maybe even Australia who are going to let us have the ball. They're going to sit in a low block and make us, kind of break them down. Maybe Pepe is a better option just as someone who can put a ball into the box, a cross in, he can get on the end of it. So maybe you'll see him start, but either way, I think we're very good at striker. Gio Reyna, I think is going to be important. He's going to need to create. I think probably comes off the bench, but he's going to need to help create some positive some positive plays here because we just not have a whole lot of creativity in midfield. So I think U.S. is going to do pretty well. I really do. I think probably the U.S. finishes first, but I actually picked Turkey to finish first. I don't know. I could see Turkey flaming out, but for some reason, I just think with Arda Güler, who's a phenomenal player. I know he's coming off of injury, but he was so good for Madrid this year. I just think Turkey's going to do it, finish first in the group. But I think the U.S. will make a pretty deep run. I think ultimately they'll face Argentina and then ultimately lose. And I think if they finish second, that's probably how the bracket's going to end up. And I just think Argentina is going to beat them. I worry that we're going to get overrun. and our back line is just going to get torched by Julian Alvarez and Nico Paz, and Messi can still pick a pass as good as anyone. Um, I just don't think we have enough defensive stability. I think honestly, we might be able to hurt Argentina in the attack. I think we might be able to run through them a bit in midfield, but I just don't think we're going to be able to keep enough of those shots out in order to realistically have a shot in that game. So I think we'll make a run, but ultimately fall short to Argentina, which, is as much as we can ask for really as a nation, given that we put zero effort into being a respectable soccer nation, quite frankly. As far as like the top, before I pick my semifinalists and ultimately who I think is going to win, I think Mbappe is always a good shout for top scorer. He takes penalties. I think France is going to go far. A lot of people have talked a lot of shit about him. He's had a lot, it's been a rough year for him in Madrid. I think he's probably going to be pretty motivated. And I'm going to pick him. He's a phenomenal goal scorer. He's already, if he scores a couple goals this World Cup, he's going to be the top goal scorer of all time already. He's already in his mid-20s. I think France is going to do quite well, and I think he's going to be at the center of that. I don't think France is going to be a super high-scoring team, though, just because how they set up under Didier Deschamps. But I think he'll ultimately get to the end just because he takes their penalties. I imagine they'll get a decent number of penalties, just as how much they're probably going to play around the opposition box. And I think they'll make a deep run. So I think Mbappe will be the top scorer. And for who I have going to the semifinals, I have Brazil making a run and facing Portugal. And then I have Spain and France both making it to the semifinals. I think Brazil-Portugal is a fascinating matchup. Obviously, both Portuguese-speaking countries. I think Brazil will have probably the majority of the fans there. I just think Portugal is going to win that game. I trust their ability in midfield. I think they're far better in midfield and will really be able to control the tempo of the game, the pace of the game. I like their depth. I think they have players who can come off the bench and make an impact. I just think it's kind of their time. I know Martinez isn't an ideal coach. There's question marks there, but I think this team's going to be pretty locked in, and I have them making the finals. Then on the other side, Spain's obviously beat France 2 straight times. I think France is without question the deepest, most talented team, but France does have some questions in midfield. I think Aurélien Tchouameni is a phenomenal holding midfielder. Adrien Rabiot always plays pretty well for France, but they do not have creative midfielders. That's like the one hole, really. I think they're good on the back line. I love Mike Maignan in goal. I think he's going to be good. Jules Koundé is a phenomenal defensive right back. They have countless center backs. William Saliba is obviously one of the best players. Upamecano is phenomenal. He'll probably start along with him. Konate off the bench. I know he's had a bit of an up and down season with Liverpool, but all in all, I think he's a very good option off the bench. They have, Teo Hernandez at left back. He's good. They just have stability there within the side. Didier's not going to leave them too exposed. He's criticized quite often for how he approaches these games with how defensive he is, but I think success, clearly he's a quite successful coach, and them playing that counter-attacking style of football where they're going to defend really well. They're going to sit in a really compact block and then break out in the counter with how much speed and athleticism and talent France has going forward. I think will work for them pretty well. I would consider bringing on Ryan Cherki, though, and moving him into like that 10 and dropping Desiree Doué to the bench, just so you have another creative player who can, as we saw with Manchester City, he can kind of do that role where he gets on the ball and he can kind of dribble almost like a younger Messi. I think if you drop him a bit deeper and have him kind of link up with the attacking front three, I could see that being a move to make if they need more kind of link up play between the midfield and the attackers if they struggle against some of these deeper block teams. But honestly, I think they're better suited later as the tournament goes on. When you play against a Spain or you play against an England or someone who's going to have the ball and they're going to come attack you, and then France is super stable, they're super compact in that back line. They're going to be they're going to work hard, they're going to win the ball and play it forward, and then you have favorable numbers attacking you with the most attacking talent in the world. With Michael Olise, Ousmane Dembele, Kylian Mbappe, who I still think is the best player in the world. It's crazy he might not have a Ballon d'Or after both Michael Olise might win this year, who knows, as well as, I mean, he probably won't, but he might, and Ousmane Dembele, who won last year. Um, their front three is just so good. Desiree Doué, you still have. I think it kind of sucks, the injuries they have there. Um, Not having Karim Benzema anymore, who obviously aged out, or Olivier Giroud, I think that might hurt a little bit. And Hugo Ekitike's injury could hurt just because he was an aerial threat and more of a traditional striker. But with how fluid they are in the attack, I think they're good. They still have Thuram. Mateta went, he's more of a traditional striker. Bradley Barcola. They just have so much talent that I think they can bring on an entirely new front three if the game's not going well, and they can find success. And most importantly, they're going to be fresh and rested because they can rotate so many players in and out. I think N'Golo Kante's inclusion is important because if anything happens to Tchouaméni and he does pick up yellow cards, I think having a real reliable six, and Kante's not what he once was, where he was the best, miss holding midfielder in the world for a while, but he's still a very good player, and I think he can still reach that really high level, especially in a short month tournament. So I think France is going to win that game. I think they're going to be motivated. I think losing last World Cup in that final left a bitter taste in their mouth. This is Didier Deschamps' final tournament before I believe Zidane's going to take over. I just think they're going to win. Spain, questions with Yamal's injury. I don't love what they have going forward. I, I think France is good enough on their back line that they're going to make it difficult to break down. And then Spain is going to come forward. They're going to attack. And then it's just, then it's just 2-on-3, 3-on-2 with Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, and Michael Olise attacking you. Desiree Doué or Ryan Cherki or someone. I just like France in that situation. And I have them going to their third straight World Cup final. Then in the final, I think it's a rematch of 2016 from 10 years ago, the Euros, where it's Portugal and France. And I think Portugal will cause them some problems. I ultimately, though, I think Portugal is going to have good control in the midfield in that game. They're far better midfield than France will be. I just think they're going to struggle breaking down France over the course of the game, and then they're just not going to be able to keep out what France has coming back at them on the counter. And I think ultimately France is going to get it done, and they're going to win their second and third years in three tournaments, excuse me. And, you could argue should be third in 3 tournaments. And Kylian Mbappe is going to kind of, make everyone remember that, he's Kylian Mbappe and he's a phenomenal player. And France is going to be entering a really rare kind of space where they've had as good of a 12-year run really as anyone's ever had. And it only looks like it's going to get better with how much young talent is coming up right now through the French ranks. It's just phenomenal how much talent they're producing. And from a country that historically wasn't always that successful at soccer, or a league that hasn't always been that competitive, for its number of elite players coming up right now, it's pretty mind-blowing. And I think potentially, it doesn't look like the Spurs are going to get it done, but with how much talent they now have coming up through the basketball ranks as well with Wembanyama and everything, it's pretty crazy what France is doing right now with basketball and soccer and how many elite players are coming up. And just might be a great summer for French. So I do have France winning. And then and by the way, I have Spain beating Brazil in the third place game. So I do have Spain coming in third. So I have France, Portugal, Spain. I'm excited. I think it's going to be obviously the World Cup is a bit of a downer with how, some of the political dynamics happening right now around the world, and especially in this country with our idiot who's running it. Um, Hopefully it won't be too chaotic. Hopefully it runs smoothly. Um, I mean, we'll see. I think actually on the pitch, though, it's going to be really fun with a lot of really just exciting storylines and players who are going to be making either their debuts or their last World Cups for Ronaldo or Messi or James Rodriguez or some of these other guys. Um, and, I'm excited for that. Hopefully the off the pitch stuff won't be too distracting and leave it too much of a downer, but I'm really excited. I can't wait. I love the World Cup. There's nothing like the World Cup. There really isn't. It's just such a phenomenal event. The entire world watches. There's so much pressure on every match. Um, and stars are born. James Rodriguez came out of nowhere in 2014. All of a sudden he was there. Um, I mean, what Morocco did and some of their players who have come up now, that's been incredible. Um, there's just players can come out of nowhere and all of a sudden they're household names. So that's one of the really exciting parts about this, and also just means so much to some of these countries. Um, and part of me kind of can't help but root. I really hope some of these African nations, if the U.S. ends up facing any of them, I kind of secretly hope these African nations kill the U.S. for how much of an asshole we've acted towards them over this whole USAID thing, and now with the Ebola outbreak and everything. So, I hope some of these nations who we've kind of picked on have some success here on our home soil, and Trump has to eat that. So that will be fun. But anyways, thank you for watching, and stay tuned Thursday for the next episode where I'll be breaking down the results of the main primary, what that means. I imagine Graham Plattner will win, but we'll see how many votes Janet Mills receives and what that might mean for a Democrats' decision on whether or not they're going to support Plattner for a really crucial Senate seat that we need to win probably in order for us to get back that majority in the Senate. So stay tuned for Thursday. Thank you for watching.